Hello, Sage 230 class. I hope you're having a good day. We have finished with the Hebrew Bible, and now we are moving on to ancient Greece. You'll notice that there is no longer a video of me in this PowerPoint recordings. I have made that change in order to try to cut down on the size of the data that I need to download to make these lectures possible. So you won't get to look at my face anymore, but I don't think that that was the primary draw for these lectures anyways. So turning to ancient Greece, we're going to spend a couple days on the golden age of Athens, which took place in the 5th century from about 508 BCE to about 404 BCE. You notice on this map of ancient Greece, the city of Athens, which is right there. It is probably the city-state in ancient Athens that did the most to promote modern Western civilization. You'll also see around Athens a few other cities that will play a significant role as we are studying this section. One is the city of Thebes. Thebes is the city where Oedipus the King, the play that we will be reading in this class, is set. You'll also see the city of Delphi. Delphi is an important city in ancient Athens because it is the location of the Oracle of Delphi. The Oracle of Delphi was a religious site where people would go to get the truth, to receive prophetic wisdom about what was going to happen. This will play a role in both Oedipus the King and in the Apology of Socrates, the two readings that we are doing. The final thing I'll say about this is that sort of like ancient Mesopotamia, where we had the cities of Uruk and Ur and so on, at the time, Greece was a series of city-states. These were independent cities that had their own government, their own civilization, and so forth. And so we are really talking about Athens, the city-state of Athens. One thing that all of the Greek city-states shared was their religion and the Olympian gods. Again, like ancient Mesopotamia, this was a polytheistic society, meaning they believed in many gods, and those gods were anthropomorphic. They were like human beings, having different emotions, desires, intentions, and so forth. They were not always good or perfect. They were like human beings. And they were also animistic in the sense that they represented powers in the world having to do with various regions of and aspects of life. So Artemis is not only the goddess of the hunt, but also embodied in the moon. And Demeter was the goddess of agriculture and grain, so the earth. Dionysus will become important in our story or in our looking at Athens, because Dionysus was the god of wine, but also of inspiration. And when it comes to theater, Dionysus was the patron god of Athenian theater and the arts. So you don't have to learn all of these gods, but I wanted you to see some of the gods of the ancient Greeks, and remember that it was a polytheistic, anthropomorphic, and animistic religion. Let's turn a bit to Athens, and Athens was an ancient democracy. It was ruled over by the people in a democratic way. All citizens participated in the governance of the city. This makes it almost unique at the time. Most city-states were monarchies ruled over by a king. Pericles is one of the most famous Greeks of the time period. He promoted the notion of Greek democracy. And in his funeral oration, he really embodied the sort of spirit and attitude of Athenians when he said, "Let me say that our system of government does not copy the institutions of our neighbors. It is more the case of our being a model to others than of our imitating anyone else. Our Constitution is called a democracy because power is in the hands not of a minority, but of the whole people." You can see a couple things in this quote from Pericles. One, that Athens was a democracy ruled over by the whole people, but also how proud they were of that, and how unique they thought it was as a way of governing society. Athenians were very proud of their city and its accomplishments, and they believed that they had risen to the height of humanity, and that all other human beings and human societies should come to imitate them. Now, when Pericles said that Athens was ruled over by all of the people, there is a sense in which that was right, but for the most case, it's false. It was ruled over by the citizens of Athens. And the citizens of Athens were defined as those who were male, whose both parents were Athenian, who were over 18, and have served 2 years in the military. So that left out a lot of the Athenian people. For example, it left out all women, so about 50% of the citizen of the society. It left out medics. Medics are poor working class people who were not identified as citizens, the sorts of people that worked in the fields and did most of the labor in society. They were not considered citizens of Athens and did not play a role in governance. And finally, slaves. There were many slaves in Athens, and slaves in most Athenian households of any wealth or prosperity. Slaves were captured, soldiers and in war who were brought to Athens to do the various types of labor necessary to sustain society so that the citizens could engage in governance. Government was basically made up of a council of 500 citizens who served 1 year terms. Now, these people were not voted upon. Rather, they were selected by lot. Um, so it was a random selection rather than voting for representatives. And in that sense, every citizen had their opportunity to serve on the council of 500 citizens that made the day-to-day decisions about Athens and its life. But the power of society, of Athenian society, resided in the citizen assembly. Anytime big decisions needed to be made, the whole of the citizenry of Athens would assemble together to make decisions by vote. So we've talked a little bit about the politics of Athens. Now we want to talk a little bit about theater. Athens was not only a important society because of the way it designed its governance, but also because of the arts, and theater was prominent among the arts. Sophocles was one of the most famous playwrights in Athens. He lived, as you can see, through most of the sort of golden age of Athens from 490 to 405 BCE, and it is said that he wrote over 120 plays. Only 7 of them still exist, however, and the one that we are going to look at is Oedipus the King, which was written in the 420s BCE. Each year in Athens, they would have a great um, theater festival at which various playwrights would present plays to the people, and the people would vote for the best play of the year. Um, Oedipus the King was entered in one of those festivals. It did not win that year. It was not considered the best play of the year, but it has become, over the generations since, recognized as an incredibly important play that says a lot about Athenian society and speaks to the human condition more generally. Those festivals were dedicated to the god Dionysus, the god of uh, alcohol and inspiration. And so they were great festivals that included a lot of drinking and a lot of watching plays and engaging in the arts. The play that we are going to look at is, as I said, Oedipus the King. And that is Sophocles' retelling of an ancient myth in which Oedipus tries to avoid the fates the gods have assigned him, but fails. It turns out the gods are more powerful than even the most powerful human beings. And at the heart of this story is the process of discovering the truth, which in the end destroys Oedipus. There are a number of themes in the play that are important. One of it is, of course, pride. The issue of pride was repeatedly dealt with in the theater and in Athenian society because the people of Athens seemed very tempted to excessive pride about themselves, about their society, about their power and ability to control their own fate. So in this play, we see Oedipus, who thinks that he is so smart that he will be able to control his own destiny. But in the end, he is ultimately controlled by it. He cannot outwit the gods or what they have planned for him. Another important theme is the theme of fate, that human destiny is ultimately in the hands of the gods. We do not control our own fate, and that is the difficult lesson that Oedipus learns through this play. No matter how smart and powerful you are, uh, your fate is not ultimately in your own hands or under your own control. There are powers in the universe that set our fate, and we cannot avoid it. The third theme that I want you to be thinking about as you're reading this is, what is a good king? What does it mean to rule well? Well, I think the lesson of Oedipus is that to rule well, a king must be humble and realize how little he really knows and can control. As you're reading Oedipus the King, I want you to keep in mind a number of the key characters. One is, of course, Oedipus, who is the king of Thebes. The second is Iacosta, who is his wife, the queen of Thebes. The third key character is Creon, who is the brother of Iacosta, and who in the end becomes the king of Thebes after Oedipus's fate catches up with him. And Creon, I think, is the representative of what a good ruler should be and what a wise person should think. And so I want you to think about Creon as the foil for Oedipus. Creon shows what a good ruler, a wise ruler, will be like, while Oedipus represents what a foolish or bad ruler is like. Another key person in the story is Tiresias, the seer, who uh, uh, helps unfold the drama, helps the Oedipus see the truth. The irony, of course, is that Tiresias is blind, but he sees the truth. And once Oedipus sees the truth at the end of the play, you'll see that he uh, pokes his own eyes out and becomes blind. So throughout the play, there is this theme of being blind and seeing. And the irony is that those who can see are often blind, but those who are blind can often see the truth. Okay? A next really important character in the play is Laius. He is dead before the play begins, but he plays a key part in it. He was the king of Thebes before Oedipus became king, and he was the husband of Iacosta before Oedipus married Iacosta. The play revolves around discovering who murdered Laius. And of course, by the end, we discover that it was Oedipus himself who unknowingly murdered Laius. And we also learn that Laius was Oedipus's father, and Iacosta is therefore his mother At the same time, she is his wife. This is the tragedy that drives Oedipus ultimately to poke out his own eyes because he sees the truth that he had been running away from the fate that was put on him, that he would kill his father and marry his mother. And he thought he had successfully avoided that fate, but uh, in running away from that fate, he ran straight into its arms. All right. Having talked about theater in Athens, we also want to spend a little time talking about philosophy in Athens. Western philosophy was really born in Athens, and we want to talk about Socrates, who lived from 470 to 399. Uh, in the latter part of the golden age of Athens, and is widely recognized as the founder of Western philosophy. Now, the people of Athens put him on trial and convicted him of impiety, of not believing in the gods of Athens, and perhaps even worse, of corrupting the youth. He famously was executed by drinking poison and died in 399 BCE after he was convicted by the people of Athens. Now, in a trial, all of the people of Athens would gather and they would vote on the outcome. So he appeared before all the people of Athens, and they decided that he was so dangerous he should die. Okay? The second person I want to introduce you to here is Plato. Plato is a little bit younger, as you can see, than uh, Socrates, and he was a student of Socrates. Uh, Without Plato, we would not know much about Socrates because Socrates never wrote a word down. He never wrote a book, he never wrote anything. He simply talked to people. Well, Plato, as his students, he wrote philosophical dialogues in which Socrates was the main character. It was sort of like theater. He or a novel. He would write the exchanges, the conversations between Socrates and other people. And the uh, thing that we are going to read from Plato today, or in this section, is the apology of Socrates. Now, by apology, we don't mean saying you're sorry. Well, what apology means here is a defense. Uh, this is the story of Socrates' trial before the people of Athens, in which he offers his defense against his accusers. And I think what you'll see as you are reading the apology of Socrates, as you read Socrates' defense of himself, his argument is that the Oracle of Delphi called him the wisest person in Athens. Well, he did not think he was the wisest person in Athens, and so he was surprised by this statement. And he went around and he decided to talk to other people and see if he could find out if he was wiser than people who were known for their wisdom. And by questioning those people, he realized that they were not wise, even though they thought they were. One of the biggest problems with people is they tend to think they know everything when they don't. And he decided that he truly was the wisest person in Athens. But what made him wise is that he knows that he really knows nothing. So the wisdom comes from humility of knowing how little you know. Now, in Athens, Socrates was a philosopher. That means directly translated, it is one who loves wisdom. But his opponents were the sophists. Now, the sophists were educated people who taught the wealthy young men in Athens the art of rhetoric or persuasion. Now, the young men in Athens wanted to know how to win any argument because it was the means of gaining power in a democratic society. You needed to persuade other people that you were right. So, um, the sophists taught the young men in Athens how to gain power and influence and honor. What the sophists did not teach was what was right and what was wrong, what was good and what was bad, because they said their job was simply to teach the art of persuasion, be able to persuade people of anything, not to teach them what was the right thing or the wrong thing to persuade them of. The sophists, you see, believed that the good life was one in which people had power and influence. This is what Socrates was against. He thought the good life was related to truth rather than just winning the argument, and then it was related to being good rather than just being rich and powerful. What was Socrates' vision of the good life then? It was one in which people lived lives of humility, knowing how little it was that they really knew, and lived lives with a higher purpose, a life committed to truth and goodness. And finally, that being a good person is more important than wealth and power and even life itself. And so I end with this quote from Socrates towards the end of his apology. It says, "Gentlemen, I am your grateful and devoted servant, but I owe a greater obedience to God than to you. And so long as I draw breath and have my faculties, I shall never stop practicing philosophy and exhorting you and elucidating the truth for everyone that I meet. I shall go on saying, in my usual way, my very good friend, you are an Athenian and belong to a city which is the greatest and most famous in the world for its wisdom and strength. Are you not ashamed that you give your attention to acquiring as much money as possible, and similarly with reputation and honor, and give no attention or thought to truth and understanding and the perfection of your soul?" That is Socrates' vision in a nutshell. That reputation and honor and money and power are not the most important things. Rather, truth and understanding and the perfection of your soul is the most important thing. So, as we look at these two writings, one a play by Sophocles called Oedipus the King, and the second the Apology of Socrates by Plato, we're looking at the question of the good life and how do you know what you know, and how do we govern ourselves properly for the common good. I invite you to look in these really interesting and wonderful ancient writings for some ideas that might be relevant to us in life today. After watching this video, I invite you to read Oedipus the King and then take the quiz on Oedipus the King. After that, to read The Apology of Socrates and take the quiz on that. All right, I hope you all have a great day, and I will talk to you before too long. Bye.